Hello. Long time no upload. I'm filming this intro for a video that I finished filming a few weeks ago. It was just a little bit hectic with having moved and not having internet for a while, but I filmed a video of me reading 3 books from genres that are out of my comfort zone, being literary fiction, fantasy, and sci-fi. I thought this would be fun to do just to mix things up a little bit. I find myself kind of getting a little bit bored or picking up on the patterns too much when I'm reading too much of the same genres, namely for me being romance or mystery thrillers. Occasionally, I would like to read books that are out of my comfort zone to see if I actually hate the genre or I have to find specific tropes that work for me. So moving on, let's get started into the first book. Our main character, Ren, who is half British Reaper and half Japanese Shinigami. She grew up in England, but she's never been accepted as a full Reaper because of her mixed race, and she gets bullied a lot. She's not trusted, she doesn't have any friends, she's outcasted even by her father who raised her. Her eventual goal is to go to Japan, to sail to Japan, because I think it's like the 1800s, maybe early 1900s or something. Her eventual goal is to go to Japan, meet more Shinigami, but actually like meet her mom and figure out what her history is. I've read a decent chunk. I'm definitely over the 50% mark. I want to say maybe about 60%, and the goal is to finish it today. I am working though, but I don't want to bring this with me to our trip to Disney. But so far it's reading really quickly. It's really great. The world building I think is so fantastic. It's really well done. I'm enjoying it so much. The imagery is really great. I only have maybe like 10% of the book left and I'm really liking it. Ren was given a task by Izanami, the death goddess, to prove her worth and so that she could become a full Shinigami, and now she's like done her thing. She's here ready to present to Izanami, and I don't know what's going to happen. I did look it up and saw that there is a second book already that was published late last year. I almost started reading the synopsis before I figured that it might be ruining something for me, but I still am really enjoying this. I'm like questioning Hiro's character a little bit because she doesn't really know anything about him and he's been so open and willing to help her. Nevin, her relationship with him is a little bit tense right now because he is full Reaper, but he gave up everything also to be with her and to be able to like start a new life with her in Japan. But like I don't really know what that means for him as a Reaper, if he'll still be able to do his work. He said something to Ren about being half Reaper and half Shinigami but not being fully accepted in Britain as a Reaper doesn't mean that people in Japan, the Shinigami in Japan, will also accept her as a Shinigami because they already see her as only a foreigner as well. And she's not really going to find what she wants, which I kind of agree with. I guess I'm also curious to see how that's going to work if she does become full Shinigami and how that'll work out in the second book as well. I just finished reading The Keeper of the Night by Kylie Baker. Wasn't the ending that I expected, nor was it like the twist that I expected to happen, and I'm not sure how much I liked it. However, I will say with the sort of cliffhanger that it was left on, I am interested in buying the second book since it's just going to be a duology. I do want to support a Asian author. I'm interested in this world still also because now that we're like in Japan, Ren really wants a future for herself in Japan. I'm interested to see where the second book will take her. Now that I'm done with the book, I will finish reading the plot of the next book. But I think this so far is a success because with it being a fantasy and that I did enjoy, I think it's YA too, which is always better for me. I'm not quite sure of my rating. I'm thinking above 3 stars though, but no more than 4. I read so much last night. Obviously with today, I read a decent chunk as well actually, that I think I'm over halfway of tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. I hurt my wrist at work today. I surprisingly am liking this. Someone sitting next to me on the train saw me reading this. I saw them holding a book, although I did overhear them on the phone saying that they were going to pick up a kid. I couldn't see the cover of the book, just the back, so I didn't know if that book was for them or for the kid that they were going to pick up, although they weren't reading it. They did say, I've been seeing this book everywhere, and I was like, yeah, that's like partly the reason why I got it. I've heard raving reviews about this book. It was a Goodreads choice winner as well as being a book of the month, book of the year for 2022. At the end of the year, their book of the year is always a free copy, which is why I got it. And I like that it's gold also. Anyway, I told the person next to me on the train that this book also took a little bit for me to get into. Actually, it wasn't until part 3 when I felt like things were getting interesting. I don't know how many parts there are, but I am past part 4 leading up to part 5, I guess. It's reminds me a little bit of like A Little Life, in that it is following 2 people who meet when they're young and a span of years, a decade I think, of their lives. The 2 main characters, Sam and Sadie, they meet as 2 young kids when they're like 12. They become friends over gaming. They meet again when in college and create a game together that becomes a bestseller called Ichigo. It launches them into fame and fortune. Now they're like 25, which is so weird because they're rich, they're like developed, they didn't end up finishing college because of this game, and they're creating new games, they have a whole business together. It's sort of just about their relationship, and that it's very platonic. It reminds me of Normal People because of like the whole miscommunication. There's really isn't a lot of plot, which is the thing that deters me from wanting to read a lot of literary fiction, because it really just depends on the characters, which is odd because the characters aren't really doing it for me in this. I can't really tell you why I'm still reading this book. It's very easy to read, oddly enough. I can't tell you what's driving me. Their relationship is so weird because they've known each other for so long, over a decade, and yet they don't really know that much about each other, and they're not that close, although they say that they love each other platonically. Their relationship is so weird, but it works for them because of this gaming, and they each have their own roles. But otherwise, I don't really know what's supposed to happen, which I guess is the point of literary fiction, but somehow this is easy to get through. I'm getting ready to leave to go view an apartment right now. Coda's gonna be helpful and come with me, but I'm getting pretty far into Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I'm now on to part 6. I'm like confused about where this is going. That's always my thing with literary fiction. Like, what's the ending going to be? Like, why am I continuing to read this? Because essentially I feel that there isn't really a plot. I'm not sure where they're supposed to end up. This book kind of starts out when they're 12, or at least when they're in college, so they're about 18, and at this point they're like 27 years old. They're still working on new games, new editions, blah blah blah. They've been business partners for so long, but I don't really know where this is going. This book, it says it spans over 30 years though. It says yes, it's a love story, but it's not one you have read before. It's a novel that examines the multifarious nature of identity, disability, failure, and the redemptive possibilities in play, and above all, our need to connect. That I'm seeing, our need to connect. That's the part that kind of reminds me of Normal People. These 2, they're not communicative at all, and it's a little bit frustrating. Not nearly as much as Normal People, but these 2 obviously love each other. Just, it's always been a platonic way. To me, it doesn't seem like it ever could have been romantic, or that they either of them thought that they could be, but there is some jealousy at play, which is kind of odd. Gabrielle Zevin really thought it'd be so funny to name this quarter Japanese baby Watanabe Naomi. Like, okay girl, okay. I finished Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and I found it to be just okay. You know, I feel like some chapters kind of dragged for me. All in all, it was just average, so my final rating for this is going to be 3 stars. The writing, at least for me, was really easy to read, and I feel like that was also a factor in why I continued to read this and why I kind of enjoyed my time with it, even though there was no plot and I didn't find that the characters were very interesting or, to me, relatable. I'm not a player of video games at all, like whatsoever, so obviously I don't know anything about video game design either. Their friendship is such a weird one. It's not really one that I've had before, especially in such close proximity to each other, but I just like didn't really understand it. I don't get the hype around this, which is why it's just an average read for me. We're finally on to the last book. My hair is not quite dry, but I need to scrunch out the crunch soon because I need to leave for work. But I used a new hair product from Bounce Curl, and I feel like it's doing a little bit better. I did the gel mousse combo today, so it's gonna be crunchy. Anyway, I'm reading The World Gives Way by Marissa Levien, which I saw only on Riley's vlog, actually. I've never seen anyone else reading it or talking about it, but apparently this was like the best book ever. I don't read much of sci-fi, obviously. If I'm gonna read sci-fi, I would just prefer it to be fantasy, although I will say that I really like Andy Weir's writing because it makes me not feel like I'm dumb, so I do really want to read Hail Mary. This book is obviously futuristic. They no longer live on Earth. The richest of the rich on Earth all created this like gigantic spaceship because I guess Earth was destroyed and they needed to leave it. They decided to take some poor people as basically indentured servants. The main character, Mira's great-grandmother, someone signed a thing to be like, yeah, my great-grandchild will also be born into this life, and it's going to be about 50 years until Mira is free. So basically the end of her life because she's now like in her mid-20s. She is currently working as like a maid or a nanny of some sort in this house, and the family that she works for, the couple, dies, and now she doesn't really know what to do. She also has this big secret about this current spaceship world that she lives in and is being chased by what the police are. It's a big deal because the family that she was taking care of were one of the super rich high up people who work in like the new government. It's a vast spaceship in which there are different like countries and different spaces to make it feel like a real world. They're really chasing her all over, and I'm about 30% of the way through, I think, and so far really good. The font like isn't that large, which makes it easy to read through as well and doesn't seem as dense as I typically associate sci-fi to be. That's also like mainly why I stick to YA fantasy, but there are perspectives mostly in Mira's point of view, but also in Tobias, who is one of the like detective type people that's chasing her. They have not yet crossed paths because she just started running away, but so far it's going pretty good. My room layout has currently changed for staging. However, because we've decided on the apartment, I think my room's going to be empty and all the staging furniture is going to be moved in. I might have to leave some stuff depending on what our real estate agent wants to do, but wanted to come in and talk about The World Gives Way because I've read quite a bit. Obviously nothing over the weekend, as I usually do not, but I've gotten pretty far into it and I feel like I need to formulate some thoughts. So I'm just about 60% of the way through this, and the sci-fi aspect of it, I wish there was more. Like, I feel like the whole world could have been explored in a series had it not had this plot. Mira is going through the different worlds to escape because she is a fugitive, and obviously security, the police in this world, are following her or chasing her, trying to catch her, and I don't know what the punishment's going to be. She doesn't really know what the punishment is going to be because she did a number of things, not just like running away from her contract, but with this terrible secret, like it feels like the world is coming to an end, but there's nothing that any of them can do about it. They have no idea what can be done about it because apparently they're trying to reach this new planet or this new world or this new spaceship supposed to be created, but it's still 50 years away. I don't really know what the destination is or what any of that means, but apparently it's too far into the future for anyone else to have thought about possibly being another world, which I guess is kind of the same thing about like the government not really doing anything to help with climate change, and we have no other world to go to, so we'll probably all just burn and die. Is this book just going to end when they catch her? Because that's so boring, and what does that have to do with the secret that she knows about the world? I feel like it's all getting a little bit boring now because this chase wasn't that like interesting. Mira's not some mastermind criminal that's all too difficult to catch, so it's not really doing much for me right now. I have been reading The World Gives Way for so long and I'm so bored of it. I think I'm gonna struggle bus the way through. I really have not been reading a lot the past few days, how I typically don't for the weekend, but also I was celebrating my birthday. I just have not had the urge to pick this up, which is not great. I definitely want to power through the rest of it today just to get this over with. I'm saying like 15%, so that's really like so little of of the book. It's going downhill for me, yeah. I realized I never actually came on here to talk about my final thoughts of this book. I'm giving it 2.5 stars because I would have liked a lot more sci-fi within this book. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but I felt like it focused a little bit too hard on like the mystery aspect. If the plot of this had a lot more to do with like the world and maybe trying to fix the world ending, it could have been a lot more interesting. Overall, it just sort of fell flat and it never really went above 3 stars for me, and with the ending not really making any sense to me, the sudden connection between these two characters, it really just fell flat, and so that's why I bumped it a 1/2 star lower to 2.5 stars. So I'm coming on to end this vlog. I read 3 books out of my comfort zone and it didn't go amazing, which was sort of to be expected. These books aren't really from genres that I read very frequently. However, I didn't hate my experience with this, even though my last book did end up being 2.5 stars. I think that I still will give sci-fi another try from time to time. I do have sci-fi books that I would like to try on my TBR, so I'm definitely not going to say that it's something I'm never going to read. However, I think I won't be picking it up very frequently. I definitely am looking forward to reading the sequel to the Keeper of the Night duology. I think that like me finding interested in that is really good, and it helps that I know for sure that I like YA fantasy more than adult fantasy, just because I think it gets a little bit too complex for me. But I will say that I will give some adult fantasy a try as well. I definitely would like to do a reread of some of them. As for literary fiction, it really depends on the book, because I'm reading a literary fiction book right now and I'm enjoying it. It's just something that I really feel like I have to enjoy the idea of the plot, because the characters really, I know I shouldn't depend on enjoying. So if there are any books from these genres that I have read that you think that I should definitely read as someone who doesn't really read the genre, please let me know. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I think I'll continue to do this just to get myself out of my comfort zone and to break things up a little bit, because sometimes reading too much mystery thrillers and too many romance books doesn't really go well for me. So I'll see you all next time. Bye!